Hey guys, Dr. Christy Ennis. Today we are going to go over how to quickly and naturally get rid of that yucky rock of misery sitting in your bowels. Now we're going to go over the do's and don'ts of diet that might be a little bit different than what you actually think. Some exercise to help get things flowing, as well as some soft tissue techniques that you're going to do on your own that involve some overlooked muscles that actually play a big role in that constipation. So starting out with those dietary do's and don'ts, when you are already constipated, right, you just can't go or it's really uncomfortable. And if you aren't sure whether that's the case, you know if you can't go. But if your stools actually are firmer than they should be, that actually counts as constipation too. And you want them to be kind of a, it sounds funny, I bet you never thought you'd be talking about this, but you do want them to be kind of a soft, almost looking like a sausage, which you can see on this chart here. Now, if you are already constipated, what you actually want to avoid is higher fiber food, which is probably totally counterintuitive to what you would think, right? But here's why. When you are already constipated, things are backed up, and the residue from fiber actually causes things to back up even more. So it's like this pipe that just keeps getting jammed with leaves and junk and yuck, and that is not good. Now, eventually you want 25 to 30 grams of fiber a day, but that is not until that constipation is gone, right? We'll talk about that later and how to help prevent some of that constipation. So when you are already constipated, you want to look at some foods that are lower in fiber, and you can still get a wide variety, yay, which is great. I'm going to go over some of those things right now. So from a vegetable standpoint, you want to look at things like mushrooms, tomatoes, potatoes, we're rhyming here, but potatoes, especially white potatoes, and zucchini is another good one, squash also. Be aware you may need to peel some of that skin off. Everybody's a little bit different, but right, the skin tends to have more of the fiber, nutrients as well, so if you can keep it, keep it. From a fruit standpoint, you're looking at things like bananas and oranges and melons and apples. Again, probably needing to peel the skin of that apple. Even some nuts are okay, like pistachios and walnuts and peanut butter, which I know a lot of people are allergic to peanut butter. We'd be in big trouble in my house because we eat a lot of peanut butter. And then some of your grains, you want to avoid the whole wheat stuff for right now. So things like white bread and pasta, yay, which is a big score if you're Italian like me. Rice is a tricky one, and that some people can tolerate white rice without any issue, and some people really do have some digestive concerns with that. So unfortunately, not a black and white one. You have to do a little bit of experimentation on that as well. And then also, you want to make sure things like dairy a lot of times are, not so bad on the belly, but if you're sensitive to dairy, another big one is gluten, then you're going to have some issues there too. So don't add those in if you know you're sensitive to, got that? Sensitive to those. Now, some people don't know what they are sensitive to. And this is when I recommend if you have a practitioner that is able to do a food sensitivity testing panel, test a lot of foods. For example, I actually was super duper sensitive to bananas, which is why I was always getting sick before I would race, because I would make my smoothies with bananas. Go figure. That's a pretty common one. So it's not a bad thing to look at. Now, with the food stuff comes the fluid stuff too, right? We've all been told probably by someone that we need to be drinking more. And by drinking more, I mean water, right? Now, most of our fluids should come from water. It's okay to have some other sources too, but kind of the guidelines for that are to take your body weight, divide that in half, and that's a number of ounces of fluid. So if you're 200 pounds, you'd want, right, 100. That's good math right there. Now, that changes if you are pregnant, right? If you are exercising, the guideline is 12 ounces for every 30 minutes of exercise added on to the fluid that you already have. Remember, this is all fluid. Try to get most of it from water, but you can include your coffee, which I have to have some coffee, and some other fluids as well. Now, that is all that you want to do right now when you are constipated. Now, it is important, like I said, that we do try to, on a regular basis, when we're not constipated, get some good fiber so that we can prevent being constipated, and that's what we're going to go over next. So if you are trying to prevent constipation, which is always a good thing, we want to try not to be constipated, right? You actually do want to make sure, like I said before, 25 to 30 grams of fiber. Now you have both soluble and insoluble fiber, and you do need both types. So from a soluble fiber standpoint, psyllium husk is a very common one that I find actually quite tasty, believe it or not. And what I really like to use and my family likes to use is this product from Bellway. And right, this is the lemon lime one, and you can hear it's almost empty. We clearly need to order more. I also like the raspberry lemon one too. But the reason I like this one over some of the other ones out there is that it is all natural and organic. There's no sugar. It's just sweetened and flavored with real fruit, which is kind of nice, right? Not to have any of that additive stuff in it. And it is really good too to help keep you full. So if you do happen to be trying to lose weight, it does help a little bit with that too, right? Because you don't have those cravings, and so you can help cut some of those calories as well. This one's cool because you can get it at Target. Some of the Targets supply it as well as Sprout stores. And it can even be considered an HSA, which is kind of nice. You can use that for it. And because you guys are awesome, you can get a 25% discount by using the code DRKE25 off of your first order. And you do have an option to buy multiple containers, which will also get you a bigger discount. So yay! So yeah, definitely my favorite way to get some of the psyllium. I take this first thing in the morning along with my electrolytes and yes, coffee. I get a lot of fluid in the morning. And that's the other thing. Do make sure whenever you are increasing your fiber, regardless of whether it's soluble or insoluble, that you are making sure that you're keeping your water intake up, which we already know we need to do anyways, right? So some other sources of fiber that are great to add from a vegetable standpoint, things like broccoli and green beans, although be careful when you are adding these in, and I will say that about even this, I tend to start with just about a half a teaspoon. You can try a teaspoon, but too much fiber too quickly will cause you to feel a little bit bloated, and I know I had to play around with that a little bit. So I eventually increased to about a teaspoonful, but half a teaspoon is where I needed to start, and your bodies might be the same. So the same thing holds true with some of those vegetables. You might need to just start with like a little bit of broccoli, right? Because those kind of vegetables tend to be a little gas producing too, little tooty, right? And green beans can be the same way. Now fruits, you always think about your pea fruits. That's what my mom always told me when I was a little kid, and boy is she right. So things like peaches, pears, plums, prunes, of course. Same thing though, small bits so that you don't get bloated and gassy at the same time. And now is where you really want to get those whole grains, right? So now we're going for those whole wheat breads, some of that brown rice. Oats are a great source, and quinoa. You can get a little bit creative here, right? But this is where you want to start to go. And I would start with, again, 20 to 25 grams of fiber. Honestly, don't go too much too quickly. And there you have it. So ways to help to prevent that constipation. Okie doke, we've got 4 exercises we're going to go over, again, to help get things flowing. 2 standing and 2 lying down, so that you have options if you can't get on the ground, or you don't like getting on the ground, or you can't stand, etc., etc. So what you're going to do for this first exercise, arms are going to come up overhead. You're going to raise and squeeze, right? That's key. Squeeze that knee as you twist. So we're just kind of wringing things out a little bit here. And you get a little bit of cardio work at the same time. Woohoo! Ah, there I go wooing again. So goal here is about 10 on each side. So you would want to shoot for 20 total. Next exercise, again, 10 to 20 reps, squeezing things out. We're going to do a little kick and a figure 8-ish. It's okay if you don't really make a full 8, right? Start spreading the news. Oh boy, that's all the singing you'll get from me. Don't fall over like me. And you can always try to reverse this too, but boy, does that take coordination. So really, the goal is really getting those arms right in that pattern, as well as those twisting motions to help wring that out. For this next one on the ground or on your bed, you're going to go with your arms overhead to really help kind of stretch and pull things out. If that's not comfortable for you, it's okay. It'll still work if you keep your arms out to the side. But I'm going to bring my arms overhead, legs are down, and I'm just going to rock those knees side to side. Now, if you're able to, without hurting your back or any other part of your body, if you bring those legs up, you get a little bit more of a squeeze here. But it will also work if you keep those legs down. And again, just like the other ones, 10 to 20 repetitions for this one. For this next exercise, you're going to bring both knees in towards your chest. Give them a nice little hug, and then we're going to go in a little circle. So I'm extending and squeezing in, right? Still going with that wringing out. So you want to try to make sure you go in both directions for this one as long as it feels okay. And again, roughly 10 in each direction. Lastly, we're going to work on some soft tissue exercises. One abdominal massage, again to help clear, and then the other that we're going to work on are those internal pelvic floor muscles. I'm going to show you an external way to do that, as well as I'll link to a video that talks about trying to do some internal releases in there to help relax those muscles. And why these muscles are important is because they form a sling over all of those openings. So they work really well to help keep things in when they're tight, right? That's why we don't necessarily, right, have a little tinkles, but it works the same way with the bowel too. So if they are over tight, then we can't let things go. So that's why they play a role in constipation. And one of the ways, or a few of the ways you can tell if you have tightness there, number one is that constipation. Number two, if you have hip and low back pain. Number three, actually, if you have chronic pain in multiple areas of your body, very often those pelvic floor muscles are tight too. If you are sitting and you feel like you have to sit with those legs wide open and kind of bending forward to get some relief, that's typically helping to relax those pelvic floor muscles because those tend to be tight as well. So we are going to start with that abdominal massage technique to help clear things out. For the abdominal massage, you are going to lie down, again on a bed or on the floor, and you are going to divide that abdomen into 4 different quadrants. We're going to start on that lower right side, and you're going to take 2 fingers, and it's a push and scoop towards that belly button, and then you're letting those fingers go. So it's push down, scoop in, let it go, release. The releasing part is important to help the lymphatic system know what the heck it's supposed to do. So you can shoot for about probably 10 or so repetitions in each quadrant, and I'm going to go in a circle, right, because that's the way kind of our intestines go as well. So you'll do about 10 in each position, and then what I usually have people do is come right to the center in their belly button, and you're going to do just a little gentle push down and rock side to side. Now this really works. I've actually had people send me some pictures to show me how well it works. You do not need to do that, but this is a great one to do after you've done some of those exercises. For the last part of this, you're going to need a tennis ball. And again, we're talking about the pelvic floor muscles. So the easiest way to get to these is internal, typically with a dilator. Like I said, I'll link something so that you can see what I'm talking about there. But if we want to try to get to those externally, some of those pelvic floor muscles are attaching down into that tailbone and around the sacrum. So we just need to kind of get in deep right around those areas. And the best way I have found to do that is using a tennis ball, sitting literally right on that darn thing. So if you actually find kind of where that tailbone is, that's where that tennis ball is going. Almost, right in towards that butt. So you can do this on a chair, you can do it in the car, but you are trying to almost lean onto one side, again, kind of right where that tailbone is. And if you're tight there, you're gonna feel this and probably feel it pretty darn quickly. So you do this, just kind of rock back and forth until it feels a little bit better. And then I typically would have people follow this up with a hip stretch. And the hip stretch I like, because some of those deep hip rotators also work on the pelvic floor, is crossing one leg all the way over, dropping the knees off to one side. So now we're stretching one side of the hip, keeping those legs crossed, and then you're going to drop the other way. So we're getting the opposite motion in the opposite hip so that we're getting both of those hip rotators stretched that attach right where those pelvic floor muscles are too. So tennis ball first, followed by the stretch, about 3 to 5 breaths for each position of this stretch. And there you have it. Hopefully by the time this is done, you're going to be heading to the bathroom.